What's up, Totem Pole Nation? Welcome back to Lambo and Matt's World of Sports. And I'm wearing black today because it feels like a funeral, man. What a gut punch for the Virginia Tech Hokies. Just a month ago, Virginia Tech women's basketball hosted College Game Day with visions of another trip to the Final Four and maybe even a chance at the championship, although we know what South Carolina is like. But since that point, Liz Kitley tore her ACL. We got upset at home, snapping a 26 winning streak at home. And Kenny Brooks, the topic of today's episode, has departed Virginia Tech after 8 seasons and a 180 record. What's up, Colton? And he's now going to be the head coach over at Kentucky. So we're going to get into that, talk about what it means for both programs and how us as Virginia Tech fans are feeling. I'm sure you could already tell through the screen how I'm feeling now. But before we get into that, I want to make sure that you guys visit totempolenation.com for some gear. Huge shout out to Sideline Sports Network. As always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and our socials are scrolling below if you wanted to give us a follow, or if you had any ideas about future episodes or talking points, you can DM us on any of that. We'll make sure to cover it. Let's get into this episode, this sad day right now.
Well, Virginia Tech is at least good at basketball from the women's side. The men's side, we'll talk about it another day. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not just Tech fans, but fans all over America. Can we please stop the hate of getting mad at the coach for leaving? He gave you 8 seasons at Virginia Tech. When he went to James Madison from 2003 to 2016, he stayed there for a good 13 to 14 years, all right? He's not one of those coaches that takes a job for 2 years and dips, all right? He was a loyal fan base. Let's just stop the hate. He gave you all he got. Before Kenny Brooks was the head coach, do you understand that Virginia Tech in conference play was so bad? They was bad in conference play. I mean, they was just god-awful, okay? The last two seasons, especially the one last year, 31-5, lost in the Final Four. This year, 25-6. For the last 2 seasons, right? You were 28-8 in conference play, okay? I respect this man. Take the job at Kentucky. Kentucky is the dream job of everything, not even just the men's side. But it was time. Now, was I shocked that he was going to leave? No. A couple weeks back, he was asked that question. He didn't deny it. But he said the correct answer. Focus on your team. And then once you lose or whatever, then you can talk about the job. Time was coming. Even your favorite coaches don't last forever, right? Even in NFL and other sports. So with Kenny Brooks, obviously, with the success at James Madison, with the success at Virginia Tech, 180 and 82. Why? How is he not going to get a job when you're successful? What? You're supposed to do a mediocre job and then get a job? No. So at the same time, let's stop bashing the man. You also have to think about your family as well where you're taking the job. It's a business. There's no such thing as loyalty. You've seen that in the NBA, right? I can go on and on and on about that for like 8 hours, right? So, Kenny Brooks, I want to thank you for what you've done for the Virginia Tech program. It is a sad day, obviously, that it's time for you to go. But I hope all your success happens at Kentucky. Kentucky already fired their coach with multiple losing seasons, which I know it does not happen in Kentucky, but the women's side is a little bit difficult than the men's side for basketball. So, Kenny Brooks, I wish you all the best. We'll see what candidates will take over for Virginia Tech for the upcoming 2024-25 season. You can go ahead and say what you have to say. By the way, before you go, Kenny Payne is going to be the 3rd highest paid coach in the SEC, so let's stop pocket watching now, okay? Go ahead.
Well, to echo what you said, I'm not mad at the man, right? Go get your money. Do what's best for you and your family. It's just, what we were accustomed to here in Blacksburg is that Kenny Brooks was family, right? Like, that's what he preached. Like, this community, this culture. He's a big reason of why it is what it is today. Like, he built it. 4 consecutive NCAA tournament appearances for a team that was very shaky, even getting into it year in, year out. ACC tournament champions last year, ACC regular season champions this year, Final Four appearance. It's just in a Final Four game against the eventual champions, in which we only lost by 7 points and were very competitive until the very end. It's just all things were pointing up, even with the departure of Liz at the end of the year, which obviously she went down with the ACL early. Well, not early, before tournament time, I should say. Georgia, now that KB is gone, I'm expecting her to not take that 5th year and just go straight to the WNBA, which is good for her. She's already on the Olympic team for Australia coming up this summer. So she's already got the clout from college, the Olympic swag. Now she's going to be a pro. I don't blame her. She should go. What makes me nervous, and I think that this is the more than likely thing, Kenny just brought in one of the best recruiting classes in the country last year. I would assume most of them are going to Kentucky with him. You saw how he developed Georgia, how he developed Liz, how he developed Kayla, more the front two than the latter. But Strack that came in is basically like a baby Liz, right? Like, she's going to get developed into a equal, if not better player than what Liz has done. And that's arguably the greatest ACC women's basketball player of all time that we're talking about. So, I'm sad for the program. I knew that we weren't going to be able, or not that we weren't able to, but I knew that it was very unlikely that we matched whatever Kentucky was going to offer him. Being one of the top paid coaches in the SEC is different. Doesn't matter what sport you're in. They're in a different bracket, and in a time in Blacksburg where it seems like the tides are shifting back towards what we used to be, and that's a football school. Is the money going to be allocated in, doubling what we're currently paying our coach in women's basketball, or is it invested into football in a season where, things seem to be on the up and up? I don't know if it were up to me what I would have done, but and I'm not saying Virginia Tech didn't try hard to keep him, but dude, I would have pulled out all the stops for KB to stay in Blacksburg. He's got a daughter on the team. So I'm assuming that she's going to go with him to Kentucky. And then his other daughter is marrying Hunter Couture, who I was hoping was staying in Blacksburg and getting in like the coaching tree here under KB to then, eventually be a Virginia Tech coach. I think that would be so amazing. It really would not surprise me if in the next couple years we see Hunter Couture with Kentucky Blue on as an assistant coach on the sideline for KB down there. So overall, I'm hurt. I'm sad. But I want it to be clear that I am not mad, and I am not one of those people on Twitter that are just spewing hate at KB for leaving. Go get your money, dude. 8 seasons, he's completely turned the program around. Now, a similarity that has been pointed out online, and I don't disagree with, is this is very similar to Buzz.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord.
Now, when you talk about, Justin Robinson was on Twitter today defending KB because a lot of fans were going crazy, and Justin Robinson had time, so he was responding, and people were bringing up that comparison to Buzz. And J-Rob was basically saying, like, look, as a player, we loved playing for him. He was a great coach. And what he did for Virginia Tech, getting us to a Sweet 16 in a year that if J-Rob was healthy, that team could have gone to the Final Four. That was a legit team. And you can go look at what the games were lined up to be. They could have made that run with a healthy J-Rob. So I think, and what he did was raise the level of our basketball program to somewhere it hadn't been in over 10 years. Very similar to what Kenny just did. And now they both left for an SEC school. the thing is, and we'll have to wait and see how many people are going to go with Kenny to Kentucky, because that's what most people are mad at Buzz for, is that he was recruiting, but the players that he was recruiting then went with him to A&M. Now, a point that J-Rob brought up on Twitter today, which I thought was a very good point to make, most of recruiting is not selling the kid on the school as much as it's selling them on the coaching and development they're going to get in that school's program, right? So it's not, hey, and it does play a part of it. I'm not dismissing that. I'm just saying it's not 100%. This is home. Blacksburg is the place to be. You want to be a Hokie, come be a Hokie, regardless of who's coaching. They're not going to make that decision if they're not in love with the coach. So players then leaving when they don't know who the next coach will be, when they got recruited by a specific coach to go get developed by that coach. I don't think that it's, this damning thing to put on the coach's head when he's the one that recruited them there in the first place. He's the reason they committed. If he's the reason they committed and he's no longer committed to that school, why would the player remain committed to that school? So that is a point I see brought up a lot with the Buzz situation, and comparisons were being drawn today on Twitter with Kenny. I think it's completely unfair. A coach is the reason that they come, right? Unless you're a blue blood and it doesn't matter who the coach is, like a UNC or a Duke or a Kansas or a Kentucky. It doesn't matter who the coach is. That's that school. UCLA could be thrown in there too. Players are going to go there for that name. If you're not one of those 5 schools, you better have a good coach that can draw some good recruits in. That's why people are mad about Mike Young on the men's side, because the good recruits he brings in, they all leave, and then everybody else on the roster are the same quality of players that he was recruiting to Wofford, which, good for him for having success with Wofford, but this is the ACC. You can't do that here. And so the same principle can be applied to the other side. They're going for the coach. If the coach can bring in top players, those top players are going to follow that coach regardless. So that's really the end of what I have to say. When I read the news this morning, I felt like I got punched in the gut and slapped in the face at the same time. I was in shock. And to reiterate, this past month, so late February, we still had expectations to earn our second 1 seed in 2 years. We were on a roll. We had won 10 in a row. Like I mentioned, up to 26 in a row over the past 2 years at home. We were just on a stretch of dominant basketball. Early March, we lose 3 of 4 games out of nowhere, go on this slump, and then Liz tears her ACL. And now here we are in mid to late March, and we get beat at home in a tight game, which we know if we had Liz, we probably would have mopped the floor with those guys or those girls. And we lose the best coach we've had in the program, arguably ever. So sad day for the Hokies. I'm wearing black because it feels like a funeral. But this is not the end. We've still got talented girls on this roster. We'll have to see who sticks around. But all hope is not lost. You know how many sellouts we had for women's basketball in Castle this year? More than I'm sure the past ever probably combined, right? Just this year and last year as well. What he's done to Blacksburg cannot be undersold. He'll always be a legend in Blacksburg. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to wish him well in Kentucky, but I wish him well as a man, as a family man. But personally, when it comes to the ACC, SEC matchups, I'm going to be rooting harder than ever for Virginia Tech.
So with the replacement, it's how business works. Just because you're assistant coach to the head coach doesn't mean you're automatically going to get the job, which we see that multiple times. Now, the top candidate for right now, there's probably multiple, but the one that you may want to look at is Lindsay Edmonds. Now, nobody has ever heard of her, obviously, Lindsay Edmonds. She's a head coach at Rice. turned around that Rice program. She's been there for the past 3 seasons. They went to the NCAA tournament. Probably they were the AAC champion as of this year. So she is probably a candidate you want to watch out for the success that she's had at Rice. Before that, she was an assistant at NC State, James Madison, uh, and Appalachian State. I think she was the assistant at James Madison when Kenny Brooks was the head coach. So
Yeah.
valuable connections. Not saying she's going to be the head coach yet, but just watch out as far as the hiring, that the two connected together, understanding the knowledge. I think if they hire her, they'll be great. And I think Virginia Tech will I'm not saying get back on their feet like they're trash, but they'll be where they were with higher expectations. And I believe that this program, women's side, will be great going forward. We'll talk about the men's tomorrow.
And like it's not going to be immediately as good because we have to take into consideration, and I think this is part of the reason people are upset, and they have every right to be upset when it comes to, we are unfortunately at the end of an era player-wise when it comes to Georgia and Liz, two of the best players, definitely top 5 women's basketball players of all time. Liz is number 1 when it comes to Virginia Tech women's basketball history. These are top 5 players in Virginia Tech women's basketball history, no doubt. Liz is number 1. You could argue Georgia's between the 2 and probably the 4 spot, because I know Aisha Shepard was there, and she was disgusting my sophomore year here. But either way, we're at the end of an era when it comes to those players, and it's just unfortunate that when it was supposed to be like a reset into the next generation of Kenny Brooks developed players at Virginia Tech to continue what he was building, we're going to have to completely restart with completely new players and a completely new coach. So I do expect that the quality of players that we're going to get isn't going to take the most massive drop off ever. I don't think that's the case. I think that Virginia Tech has built that respect when it comes to being a women's basketball school. But it's not going to be, I don't think, the smoothest sailing this first year with an entirely new program, basically.
Well, that'll be tough. This is a funeral. It's going to last one day or maybe longer. But this is Lambo and Mass with the Sports. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow the social medias right under the ticker. We want to thank you, Sauce, for the platform. Like I said, y'all have a great night. Please take care.